So in this part, I'm going to be describing to you how to name covalent compounds. Right? So let's start off by defining it for the sake of this video. A covalent compound is a compound that is made completely of nonmetals. Right? So um, instead of like an ionic compound where electrons are exchanged, which causes them to be ionized, what happens is electrons are shared between them. Um, So now that we know what a covalent compound is, and that'll help us identify whether we're working with a covalent compound, we can go on to the rules for naming covalent compounds. Right? So in a covalent compound, when you're naming it, the first element only has a prefix if there's more than one of them present. So for example, this silicon right here, the Si, doesn't have a subscript, so therefore there's only one of them, meaning that it doesn't have a prefix. But this P here, the phosphorus, does have a subscript. It has a subscript of 4, meaning there are 4 of them. So that means it's going to have a prefix. Now, let's look at the second element. So, in the case of the second element, there will always be a prefix, regardless of if there's only one or not. But it also has the suffix "ide." So, what that would look like is, let's take this sulfur for example. So it's going to have a prefix, but instead of sulfur, because it's the second element, we would call it sulfide. So you just replace the last bit of the final element, the second element, with an "ide. And then that's how you'd name your compounds. Right? Now, the prefix that we use for the first and second elements come from this prefix table right here. Right? So the way this works is this is the number of elements you have, right? And this here is the prefix you use. So now let's use some examples to sort of help you get a feel for it. Right? So let's start with the first one. So we see the silicon right here. It has no suffix. I'm sorry, not suffix. It has no subscript. So that means there's no prefix with it. So we don't need to worry about that table. We just start with silicon. Right, so we have silicon. Now we go on to the oxygen right here. There are 2 oxygens. So that means we go to the table, we see the prefix di. And we're working with oxygen, so oxygen, because it's the second element, becomes oxide. So dioxide. Right? So this right here is named silicon dioxide. Now, xenon and fluorine right here. Again, only one of them, so that means there's no prefix. So let's just write down xenon. The fluorine there are 6 of them. So we go to the table, we see 6 means hexa. So fluorine becomes hexa fluoride. Okay, so this is just called xenon hexafluoride. As for P4S10, we see that the phosphorus does have a subscript now. So we look at the table, we see that 4 means tetra, so we'll start with tetraphosphorus. Then we move on to the sulfur. There are 10 sulfurs, so we use the prefix from this table, deca. So prefix is deca, and this is sulfur, so that becomes sulfide. And that would be our answers. So this becomes silicon dioxide, this becomes xenon hexafluoride, and then this becomes tetraphosphorus decasulfide. And that's how you would name covalent compounds.